Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Bayou Time. I'm Martin Folse. On a very sad note, a dear friend to everyone. That is the best way that I can describe Mr. Jack King. What a gentleman, what a funny guy at times, a songwriter, a beloved member of our community. He passed away after many years of uphill battles, but uphill battles to Jack were routine, and he made sure he got through them. I can remember Jack coming in on a one-on-one program years ago. Let's start off that program with the first question that we posed to Jack King. What year were you born?
I was born January 16th, 1950.
1950?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I know you came on because I'm looking at part of your book that you wrote, and I have it in front of me. And as I was reading it, you know, there's no secret that you had meningitis when you were young, and it affected you physically.
Yes, sir.
But I've never one time heard you use that as an excuse for anything. And you haven't used it as an excuse. Matter of fact, when you hear people complaining, you sort of put them in their place, don't you?
Yes, sir, because you think you have problems, look around. Because there's always somebody a little worse off.
And we're going to talk more about his meningitis and how he overcame it mentally. A very tough thing to do. But if you saw Jack, and I didn't see him as much as Joey Yesso and Brian Gano and Kurt Shakespeare and Sandra Savoy, and a lot of people who go to the coffee shop on a frequent basis, but I did see him a lot. Matter of fact, he came to our Sports on the Bayou show for many, many years. Every Tuesday, Jack was sitting right here in the Lorraine Falls studio, and kudos to Rich Marty, that all-pro special teams guy from the New Orleans Saints who does our show. He would go in the back and always find time to talk to Jack King. Ted Basrom, another one, always found time to talk to Jack King. Brian Gano, my former coach at Vanderbilt, always stepping in and doing important things to help Jack out. Ronnie Trahan, I saw him this morning. He arranged for Jack King to ride on a Mardi Gras float. That was on his bucket list. Well, he rode. Mr. Skipper Carnegie made it happen. Ronnie funded it. They got him the Mardi Gras throws, and Jack King had a great time on a Mardi Gras float. David Rabelais, so many people helping out, help build ramps for his house while Jack was on vacation. So many people wanted to do things for Jack King. Why? Because he was just such an integral part of our community. And although I guess he had an affliction, no one really treated him like he had one. And you know why? Because Jack never acted like he had one. Meningitis took a lot of his physical abilities at a young age, but that never stopped Jack King. Let's listen to one of those questions I had and posed to him on one-on-one. How old were you when you got meningitis?
8 years old, July of 1958.
Okay. And you were telling me a story about how you thought you got it or how you contracted it. Give us that story.
Yes, we were cutting our family's grass. After that, a flash rain came. Me and Motor's brother, we stopped the lawnmower, played in the rain. I was 8 and he was 9. After it got through raining, the mosquitoes came out. The mosquito bit me. That I killed it, and after my mother, she was called me and my oldest brother to come in the house to take a bath. And then after that, my dad was going to be treating me and my oldest brother to a show in downtown Houma. Well, about an hour or so later, me and my oldest brother, my dad came and brought us to the movie at the old Grand Theater. The old Grand, it used to be where the old City Hall and Mardi Gras Hall is at. It's that parking lot now. About an hour or so later, my brother called up. My dad told him I was sick. And then he came and picked us up. When I got back at the house, I was white as a sheet. And then my mother, she tried to give me something to try to settle my stomach, but that didn't work. About a day or so later, my dad, he called up our family a doctor, explained to him what was going on. He told my dad that I had a virus. He went and prescribed. He told him to go get some pills at the drugstore. So about a couple hours later, my dad, he went and got the pills, came and brought it to me. That didn't work. It just got worse. Spent about a couple of days at the house, and they sent me at a Terrebonne General. Spent about a couple of more days there. Finally, the doctor told my dad, "We'd like to send your son to charity in New Orleans." So he said, okay. So he called up the ambulance. The ambulance came and picked me up from Houma into New Orleans. I slipped in a coma. Got me to charity. They tapped my spine once. A couple of hours later, found out what I had. It just too late. I had meningitis of the brain. The doctors told my mom and dad that the odds was against me. In other words, it would be a miracle if I would live through this. So they gave up hope on me. There was a lot of prayers said for me, asking the good Lord to please spare my young life. Well, if you believe in miracles the way most of us do, well, I'm one. One night, the good Lord came and put his two hands. The fever left me paralyzed on my right arm and leg and affected my speech. But it hasn't held me back.
Wow, that's all I can say. And if you read Michelle Caskey's narrative on Facebook about Jack, so many people just pouring out their love towards Jack. He was a celebrity. Don't kid yourself. Jack King, I don't know if anybody didn't know Jack King. He'd come up for Mardi Gras all the time. I never forget one time. I said, "Jack, you coming up for Mardi Gras?" He said, "Well, you didn't invite me this year." I said, "Jack, you are always invited, every parade." And he lit up and he smiled. Plus, we had that new elevator, and he really enjoyed the new elevator. But so many people wanted to help Jack, and he wasn't always looking for a handout. But I think that's just the heart that he had, and everybody sort of tapped into that and wanted to help him out. T.C. Canner helped him quite a bit. Man, I could go down the line and just keep naming you names of people that really just wanted to help out. How many people passed and picked Jack up on the side of the road at one point? I'll never forget when that weather was down about close to zero chill factor in Terrebonne Parish one year. I'm driving home from work. It's cold in the car because I just got in it. And I'm going down about a half mile from HTV, and there's Jack walking in the cold. And I pulled over on the side, and I rolled down my window. I said, "Jack, are you crazy?" He said, "Yeah, a lot of people tell me I am." I said, "Get in the car." I mean, he walked everywhere. He walked. Ronnie Trumhan was telling me a story this morning that he used to walk for the Dulorge Fair. I mean, and it was like 8 o'clock, and Ronnie told me, he said, "Well, Jack, the fair doesn't start till 11. He said, "I know, but it takes me 3 hours to get over there." So he said, "Hop in." They would bring him to the fair, and he was, Jack in those days, he didn't have the power scooter, but he was walking. And just recently, he sort of went to the power scooter. That's probably a little quicker to get where you're going, but it's harder to put in a car if somebody wants to stop and pick him up. Now, how many times did I see Joey Yesso at the coffee shop taking care of everybody with sweets and treats? And he really took Jack under his wings, too. So many people loved Jack King. But he used to be a salesman around this area. But a lot of you didn't remember that. Let's roll in that piece from One-on-One. I, along with several other people, have stopped at one point along Barrel Street or watching you walk.
Yeah.
You walk for miles sometimes.
Yes, sir.
And normally when I see you, I know you like to walk.
Yes, sir.
So we'd let you walk, but there was one morning when I think it was 20-something degrees, and I left the station, and you're walking down Barrel Street. And I rolled down the window, and I pulled over and said, "Mr. Jack, get in." And you're like, "No, I'm okay." I said,
I'm okay.
"Get in."
I'm okay.
Get in the car. It's 20, I think it was 22 degrees,
Yes, sir.
and I drove you to the east side, but nothing seems to affect you.
No, sir.
I guess going through what you went through,
Yes, sir.
I mean, you're on the lucky side, so
Yes, sir.
you see it as such, don't you?
Yes, sir. I look at it like this. It always could have been worse. So about a couple of years later, I was watching a show on TV. They called Route 66. About two fellas traveling all over the country. One night I turned to my mom and dad, told them one day, "I want to see this country." Both of them shook their heads, said, "Jack, we all have our dreams." After that, telling my family and friends about my future plans, most of them said, "Jack, stop and think and take a good look at yourself. You're disabled, limited what you can do. But with that paralyzed right arm and leg and speech problem, that is just a dream. And it would never will come true."
And you've traveled
Yes, sir.
all kind of places.
I was 16, went to work, was in sales. 6 months later on the road traveling. I traveled in about 40 states. September 76, quit the road, came back to Houma. Following year, got operated on my foot, couple operations on my arm. October of 78, I went to work at a Jabber Medical Center.
You said the late Senator Leonard Chabert helped you get that job.
I came and put my application in August of 78. The lady that was in charge of the hiring, she told me, "Well, if ever can find a job you can do, I'll give you a call." She told me, okay. I told her, okay. After that, waited around, nobody would call. After that, a couple of my friends told me I'd go see Javert. So the day before Halloween, I went and saw him at his office. Next day, I went to work.
You said you drank a Coke and he drank a Diet Coke.
Yes, sir, right. Yes, sir, right. Yep.
So y'all were loaded up on caffeine and y'all were
Yes, sir.
cutting a deal.
Yes, sir, right.
And how quick did you get the job after that? Because I know you had a lot of stroke.
Next day, I went to work. Halloween day.
What did you do?
I was in housekeeping.
Yeah.
I went in a picked up trash, and all that good stuff. And after that, from there, I went to SPD Central Supply. From there, I went to nursing services. I was a courier and got things, X-rays, blood, and all that. As I sit back and listen to Jack, it's just going to be sad not having him around. I mean, he was a mainstay in this community. The other day, me and Debbie Cox DeNova were, I was having my little almond milk and bananas, and she was having her hot tea, and Jack walked in, and we talked to him, and of course, he had a joke or two, always had a joke or two. Little did we know that the next day he would be stricken, and then after that, I would get daily phone calls from Ted Bergeron, letting me know how he was. But, when you lose somebody like that in a community, there's an absence
I mean, a real big absence. And I don't think of myself as much as I think of those that just took care of Jack all the time. Brian Gano, like I mentioned, Joey Yessel, Ted Bacheron, that whole crew at the table all the time. Danny at the table, Kurt, Linda. I know I'm forgetting names, but I'm just trying to recall those that just always just had a place for Jack. Mr. Gene. And never again looked at Jack as having a disability, because once again, Jack never thought he had a disability. Sure, everybody knew it and Jack knew it, but he just didn't act that way. He was always sociable and getting around and making sure he could be seen and making sure he saw everybody. He could have stayed in. And, my good buddy David Rabelais, he always had a big heart for Jack. T.C. Canna, once again, always had a big heart for Jack. And the stories, just Ronnie Trahan again today, telling me that he was listening to Jack one time saying that he met some friends that came down for one of the festivals, and they were from Maine. And Jack got to know him pretty good. So they invited Jack. They said, if you ever come to Maine, we'd like to put you up. So Ronnie, hearing this, and Jack had mentioned it a couple of times, he went to a travel agency. And first thing he did, though, was call these people from Maine. I think Jack had given him a number, and Ronnie was checking them out to make sure they were okay. And they were like, no, we love Jack King. If you get him down here, we will put him up, and we'll take care of him for a few days and show him around and do some things. Well, Ronnie, being the good heart that he is, went to the travel agency, books a few days, and then as the story goes, sat down with Jack and said, Jack, I know somebody that's going to Maine. And Jack was like, who? He said, you are. And he said, man, the tears were coming down Jack's face as once again, somebody saw through that big heart and made sure that Jack got what he needed. This was a spiritual thing for Jack to make those trips. And I can still see Jack King sitting right there in the corner of the Lorraine Falls studio and just enjoying sports on the Bayou and just anticipating the raffles and different things. And he had such a sense of humor. And, we talked about the book. And you go, what book? Well, let's roll that in. I thought this was very interesting. They call me a disabled American. I was born January 16, 1950. I was born normal birth and child. Grew up a fighter, but the biggest fight I ever fought was yet to come. July of 1958. I caught a virus the doctor called meningitis of the brain. They told my parents that the odds were against me, so they, the doctors, gave up hope. They made my mom and dad break down crying. A lot of prayers said for me, asking the good Lord to spare my life. Well, if you believe in miracles the way most of us do, I'm one. One night the good Lord came, placed his two almighty hands on me, and saved me. The fever left me partially paralyzed on my right side and affected my speech, but this hasn't held me back. I hope you enjoy these stories and poems of a dream behind the handicap disability. And I'm going to go a little further in the book. And the one part that caught me was, in here you put, what would you do if something like this would happen to you?
Yes, sir. Right.
Explain that.
Just a little funny take about my life,
But you talked about the fact that there was a lady on the corner
yes, sir.
in a wheelchair
Right.
waving at everybody. Tell that story to the people.
You think you have problems. One day I was talking with this fellow that I know, complaining about his little aches and pains. That's when I smiled at him and said, looked at my watch, said, would you like to come and take a walk with me? This fella said, okay. Walked for about a couple of blocks, stopped and smiled at him and said, oh, you think you got problems? Oh, you think you've got it bad? Look at that lady, see that lady across the street in that wheelchair. smiling at everyone she meets. Complaints, that's one thing she just never does. But she looks at it like this. It always could have been worse. But every morning she wakes up with that smile on her face, says her morning prayers. That's when she puts herself in that chair, rolls herself all over her house, hums a little song. That's when she gets all dressed up. That's when she rolls herself out of her door. That's when she goes to work. So you think you got problems, or you think you've got it bad? Well, my friend, open up your eyes and look around.
But here's a man, you, Jack King, that has been paralyzed on the right side, paralyzed your vocals to a certain extent, and you go show him another example.
Yes, sir. Right.
You didn't point to yourself and say,
Right.
look what I had to overcome.
Yeah, right.
You brought him down the street to see a lady in a wheelchair,
Right. Yes.
which tells me
Yes, sir.
you don't see yourself as a problem.
There's a difference between being crippled, handicapped, and challenged. A crippled person can do nothing but sit around the house and think of things that could have been, while a handicapped person is limited what they can do. But while a challenged person is a challenge from God that says it's 10% more, let me see what you can do. Because at one time in my life, I was all three. In that wheelchair, got up and walked. Then in '66, I went to work.
Wow. What an answer. That answer just sticks with me to this day. Well, finally, we got two more clips I want to show you because, Jack wrote, got a lot of songs put together, hooked up with Persian Wells, and Jack likes to write songs. Matter of fact, I sit down with him, and right off the cuff, he could give you the words of a song that he wrote. And he was a showman. Don't kid yourself. Jack liked the limelight at times. Didn't always like the limelight, but he liked to clown around with the people at the coffee shop. Sometimes he had quiet moods. Sometimes he was out the box. But occasionally, he would write a song or sing a song, and then he started putting them down in the studio. And thanks to Persian Wells for working with Jack on those songs. Let's listen into that question on the one-on-one. What's your favorite song of all time?
When I saw her shrimping there, the Beatles, you remember the Beatles?
Right.
When I saw
When
her
I
standing.
saw her standing there.
Mine is the Cajun version.
She was just 17, you know what I mean. Then the way she smells was way beyond compare. So how could I shrimp with another? Phew, when I saw her shrimping there. Well, she looked at me, and then I could see that before too long she was shrimping with me. So how could she shrimp with another? Phew, when I saw her shrimping there. Whoa! My heart went boom when I crossed that bayou. Then before too long she was living next door to me. So how could she shrimp with another? Phew, when I saw her shrimping there. My heart went boom when I crossed that bayou. Then before too long she was living next door to me. So how could she shrimp with another? Phew, when I saw her shrimping there. Since I saw
Do you sit up at night thinking of these parodies?
Nope. This was in the 60s when the Beatles first came to America.
Right.
That song was on the TV and also on the radio.
I told you, he was a riot. I mean, and we'd hear the songs that he wrote, and, you know, it was incredible. So his mind was always still clicking. I mean, we may have seen him walk with a limp and not use his left hand real well, but that mind was always clicking. Well, during that interview, I asked him about the one word that would describe him. Let's listen in. If I got David Rabelais in a room, and I got T.C. Cantor, and I got all your buddies that go sit with you over at the breakfast place, and we got a room full of people, and I said, y'all give me one word to describe Jack King. What would you hope the one word they would use to describe you?
Determined. Determined. Yep. Where there's a will, there's a way.
I would say determined.
Yes, sir.
You're over determined.
Yes, sir, right.
I would say you beat some pretty good obstacles.
Yes, sir. But with the help of the good Lord, you know, I done it. And I'm still going strong. So.
You're still going, still walking 5 and 6 miles a day.
Yes, sir. Right. Yes.
Jack, we appreciate you being on One and One and being such an inspiration
Thank you, Martin.
to everybody, because I tell you, I remember the first couple of times I met you, and I have to be honest.
Yes,
I said, oh man, I felt sorry for you. But as I got to know you, I don't feel sorry for you. Because there's nothing to feel sorry about.
yes, sir. Because I took up my cross and carried it.
Wow. I could see him going right through the pearly gates. Probably tipped his hat at St. Peter, and he's just rolling along. Jack King was an inspiration to everyone, and I mean everyone. And this town has been very solemn and quiet for a few days now. If you read the Facebook narrations on him, a lot of people love Jack King. He was one of a kind, and he's going to be missed by an entire community. And certainly, we appreciate God for giving us Jack King for all these years, because he taught us a lot about inspiration and, yes, determination. May Jack King rest in peace, and thanks to all of you. I'm sure I forgot a few names out there, but thanks to all of you who took a little time out of your day to make his day more special. Amen.
At South Louisiana Bank, we're great at banking, but we're great at a lot of other stuff too.
Is that a new rod and reel?
Hey, a girl's got a fish.
We care about the community we live in and the people we serve. We're not just like you. We are you.
Are you boiling crawfish?
No, just letting them soak.
We're proud to be here and work for the place and the people we love. South Louisiana Bank. It's in the name.